There's a distant calling, a faint vision inside you that tells you you could be doing more, being a better version of yourself. You can suppress it, run from it, keep distracting yourself to ignore it, but you find that you can never do that for too long. In the moments of silence, just before going to sleep or driving alone, you can't help but see a higher, truer version of yourself that you're currently not embodying. This could be anything, like becoming more fit, eating better, working out consistently, or going for runs. It could be about doing better at work, be more focused, energetic, driven, and communicating better. It could be about quitting your addictions and compulsions like scrolling social media endlessly, smoking, alcohol, or junk food. It could be about being more authentic, accepting yourself more, saying what you mean, and meaning what you say. You know that you want to be doing these things. You know it's important for you. But somehow you never end up doing them. It's a difficult, complicated, and messy process, and life is already full of so many other day to day things that keep taking up your headspace. But all of that doesn't make the need to transform yourself go away. It's always lurking in the background, reminding you of your higher callings. But to learn how to transform yourself, you first need to ask yourself, what is it that you're calling the self? Pause this video for a few seconds and think about what your self means to you. In these moments of silence and reflection, you may have noticed some strange things about yourself. When you observe yourself, it's full of so many different things like your physical body sensations, what you're seeing, hearing, smelling, touching. Your thoughts, both that seem to be occurring randomly and the ones that you can bring into existence. There are impressions from the past and projections of the future. Your feelings and emotions, hormones and chemical reactions inside your body that are making you feel a certain way. Your sense of identity of who you are, the continuous chain of events and narrative that's going on since you were born and that has shaped you to be the person that you are right now. But perhaps most importantly, encapsulating all these distinct parts of yourself, the one that's constantly having this experience of yourself is you. You are the observer. The observer becomes even more apparent when there's conflicts inside your own mind. For example, you are desperately craving for an ice cream, but you know that you shouldn't eat it because it's very unhealthy for you. Now you or your mind may do one of two things. Either convince you that it's okay, you're allowed to have some fun, you deserve this ice cream, you've been working out a lot recently. Or step in and say no, there's absolutely no way you're eating this because it would undo your weight loss efforts in the gym. In the first one, your mind convinced you to go with your instinct, and in the second one, it drove you away from it. It may seem like a very simple example, but you know that it's so much more complicated than that. There's a lot more to it than how you feel turning down that ice cream. Maybe you feel sad and bleak that you're not having enough fun in life and missing out on too much. Or that you eat it, but then later you feel guilty about it. Maybe you feel rude turning it down in front of your friends who all went for it. Maybe you usually never go for it, but you've been having a sad phase in your life and that ice cream is the only exciting thing that can cheer up your mood. As you can see, even this simple decision can look so different in these different circumstances. The experience of yourself can be complex and conflicting. It can also be extremely deceiving, putting your short-term pleasure over your long-term goals. It's also fragmented. One moment you're having one thought and another. In fact, a research from 2020 suggests that one person can typically have over 6,000 thoughts every day. So a lot of complex things going on. Let's come back and try to simplify it all. The self has intrigued us ever since we've existed. And many over the years have tried to define it in many different ways using different models, from philosophers, sages, and saints to scientists, psychologists, and economists. And yet, there is no clear objective answer which everyone agrees on. For our purposes, to keep it simple and as close to objectivity as possible, let's look at how a neuroscientist, Dr. Andrew Huberman, defines the experience of the self as 5 distinct but interlinked layers. The first one is sensation: what you see, what you hear, what you touch, what you smell, and what you taste. These are the raw inputs from the external world to your senses. Then there's perception: what you are focusing on. It is a spotlight on these sensations. For example, right now there's so many things going on around you, but the spotlight of your attention is listening to this video. Then there's the layer of feelings: chemical reactions inside you causing you to feel a certain way: angry, sad, happy, hopeful, motivated, or depressed. Then there's a layer of thoughts, both the ones arising on their own, but also the ones that you are bringing into existence by thinking about any subject. And finally, there's the actions. You move your body in the external world, like speaking, walking, or eating. So, as you can see, the self is not just one entity, but a process resulting from a constant interaction of these different layers inside your mind. Now that we understand the self a little bit better, let's talk about how we can engage with it and transform it. So, we learned that the you, your mind, your brain, or yourself, whatever you'd like to call it, functions through the interplay of different layers. Now, these different layers of the mind or the brain are interconnected through physical wires called neurons, and they're constantly passing information between these different layers, communicating and coordinating with each other. When you encounter something for the first time, your brain has to physically process all the new information. It has to make wirings for the first time, and that takes a lot of energy. Imagine that inside our brain, the neurons are physically trying to attach to different existing networks to try and find the most appropriate response to a new situation. Over time, as you repeatedly encounter similar situations, your brain goes through the same wiring circuits again and again. Your brain starts to form a pattern, which it can use again and again instead of figuring out which connections to make every time. This is because our bodies are designed to save its energy, be as efficient as possible to sustain itself for our survival. So every time you go on that pattern, it's reinforced through a strengthening of the circuits related to a particular situation or decision making. The brain starts to cover those wires with a thicker layering called the myelin sheath. So the next time the same event occurs, the pattern processes much faster and in an efficient way instead of wasting its energy trying to figure out what to do every time from scratch. So looking at this another way, what your self is now is nothing but a collection of these circuits. Some of them more hard-coded, some less, but nevertheless just circuits inside your brain. With the ice cream, it has created circuits based on your past responses and feelings. One interesting thing over here is that the past responses also involve our ancestors. Evolutionarily, for example, we are hardwired to like sweet things because sugar was an extremely rare and high energy food source when we were living in the forests. In today's age, we have artificially created foods like ice cream, which contains hundreds of times more sugar than anything that grows naturally and which our body has naturally evolved for. So when we are consuming sugar, we are essentially hacking and abusing our body, but let's not go down that road for now. To transform yourself, you need to engage and transform these circuits. As you can imagine, it's not necessarily an easy or pleasurable task. For example, to break down a habit such as smoking or eating sugar or scrolling social media for hours, you are physically going against your hard-coded circuits. You're trying to break down and recreate what has accumulated over years of repeated actions as well as your evolutionary hardwiring. So how do we change these circuits? This is where the observer comes into the picture again. It's the you or yourself that is the one observing all these patterns. This observer is incredibly powerful, for it has the ability to bypass the circuit and enforce a conscious choice. First, you have to decide the action that you want to take. It can be any behavior that you want to start or stop doing. Or in other words, creating a new pattern in your brain or breaking down an existing one. The reason why you feel like making this change is that the observer, the conscious self inside you, is pushing for it. The interesting thing here is that even though the conscious parts of you want to make this change, the unconscious parts of you will try to resist this change. They will want to keep the same patterns even though the conscious you can see that it's not in your best long term interest. For example, the unconscious you can do any of these things: make overeating feel good even though it's ultimately hurting the body, making it overweight and more prone to diseases. Get you to keep scrolling social media even though you know that it's filling your brain with random junk designed to keep you hooked. It will make you feel lazy, not get out of the bed or go to the gym or go for a run, even though when you know it's the best thing for you. So, your main job here is to override your own circuits while living inside them. Imagine it like your conscious self living beneath the circuits that your body has created. When you feel a higher urge, it's your conscious self trying to break out from its unconscious chains. As Dr. Huberman puts it, you will feel stress, confusion, agitation, maybe even pain as you try to create a new behavior. But instead of seeing this as a resistance, you can also see it as an entry point to meaningful change and push through it. This is what can also be called in everyday language as willpower. In fact, scientists have discovered that there's a physical part in your brain that's considered to be the seat of willpower, called the anterior midcingulate cortex or AMC. This brain part is responsible for you feeling motivated to tackle any hard task. Remember how we defined a hard task: a conscious breaking down and overriding of your existing brain circuits. The AMC grows in size every time you take an action that you didn't feel like taking. For example, if you really didn't want to get out of the bed and go for a run in the morning, but you still push through, your AMC physically grows in size. And the more developed this brain part is, the higher willpower you will have. Unsurprisingly, researchers have found out that the people who constantly push the boundaries of their willpower, like professional athletes and high performers in any field, have a higher size of the AMC. So at the end of the day, the game of self-transformation is all about pushing through the resistance of change. Viktor E. Frankl, Austrian psychologist, philosopher, Holocaust survivor, and the author of the book Man's Search for Meaning, best summarizes this learning in his famous quote: "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." Your self-transformation journey is your own journey. And from what you've learned so far, you should be able to chart your own way forward to achieve the things that you want to. To help you along the way, I will share with you 3 very powerful tools. The first one is constantly observing yourself. When an event happens, we usually have an immediate response. But if you look closer, there's a space between them. Your mind and body are creating action potentials inside your mind to trigger an action. You are being primed to take that action. But your conscious self has the power to not only observe this, but also intervene if needed. Simply by being mindful in the moment, you can start to see your own patterns and hardwirings. For example, observe yourself when you're hungry and you see food. You are being compelled to eat it right now. Or when someone says something and you get angry, look closer at what really made you angry. If there's a pattern that you want to break, just pause and look at it. And when you observe yourself more and more clearly, things will start to emerge from it. You will be able to see your own patterns and what exactly you want to change. The second tool is connecting to your breath. The breath is your highway to the central nervous system. As Dr. Huberman says, when you are agitated or angry, your body makes your breathing faster. And when you're relaxed, your breath is slower. The interesting thing here is that the body is reacting to the situation in a bottom-up way. But you can bypass it and enforce your top-down control on it anytime. When you slow down your breath consciously, you're sending a signal to your body that everything is okay. When you're feeling agitated, you are away from your consciousness. The hard-coded patterns that your body has find it easier to take over and take the action that they want to. But if you're calm, you can exert conscious control over your unconscious needs. The third tool is writing everything down. Writing is an extremely powerful tool to both uncover your patterns and keep reinforcing the desired changes in them. To change your patterns, you will need to constantly reflect and act on them, and writing about it makes it very, very clear. Write in detail the end goal you'd like to achieve. Write about what exactly would it take for you to get there. Write about the actions that you will specifically need to take every day for it. Write about the hard, non negotiable rules that you will need to commit to if you are to ever change your patterns. And then keep writing it consistently, daily, weekly, as much as you can. Burn the desired patterns inside your brain. A lot is said about journaling, but this is really the essence of it. Your patterns keep on going unnoticed if you don't write about them. When you write it down, you're forcing a conscious perspective on yourself. You can write about anything you want to bring your attention to, like how you felt about a certain event or a person. Follow your chain of thought and see what it brings up. Don't be overwhelmed with what you should write. It's a private activity and you can write whatever you want without the fear of judgment from anyone, including your own judgments about you. And if you're really struggling to write anything, just challenge yourself to write a journal entry every day for 10 days and see where it gets you. Put a reminder on your phone for 10 minutes every day and hold yourself accountable to write whatever comes to your mind during those 10 minutes. You can use any note taking app or even voice notes, but I would highly recommend doing it physically with a pen and paper. Research has shown that the physical act of writing with a pen on paper has a stronger and deeper impact on your brain than typing or speaking. It probably goes back to our evolutionary programming as well. Writing is more primal than the modern typing. In the end, self-transformation is really just about consistently observing and reshaping your patterns. It's about learning to notice your patterns and making better choices, even when it's hard. By becoming more aware, you can pause and choose a new path each time. And each small step helps you rewire your brain and bring you closer to the person that you want to be. The process might be challenging, but growth happens when you embrace the discomfort of change and keep moving forward. Thank you for watching this video. If this helped you, let me know in the comments. I would be very happy to read them. And if you think this will improve the life of someone that you know, make sure to send this video to them too.